ingredient supplier, I think I'm at a very unique vantage point because I am able to control the extracts and the extractors that I work with for the natural products that I am developing, and also be able to pass on the right science to a brand. So, and I think for me, when I look at scientific rigor, quality, integrity, I really can't separate the three. So I want to be able to go into each one individually. So what like Nutriventia would do is right from selecting the extractor, doing our vendor qualification, understanding, the raw material, testing it batch to batch, auditing our vendors on a regular basis. That forms a part of the crux of how we start any product development. Let's take it a step further and then look at the formulation. So when we have selected an ingredient, what is the active content? Is it standardized? Is it standardized to the US pharmacopoeia? What am I looking for in terms of delivery technology? So what are the inherent handicaps in the ingredient which make them either inaccessible, large doses, very short half-life, multiple doses? So what is it that Nutriventia can bring to the table? And that's how then our development process starts. Once we have an idea of which delivery technology to use, we then take it a step further and try to understand, okay, what's the mechanism of action? What are my natural dietary-based excipients that I can use to enhance the product? Because I don't want to take a natural product and add synthetic surfactants or artificial excipients to it. So that forms then the basis of developing the product. Take it another step further, understanding what is my preclinical requirement, what is my dosage. When you're looking at dosage, it's not a straightforward answer. We start with preclinicals were required. We will do pharmacokinetic studies, and these pharmacokinetic studies are actually not as popular in our industry, but they give us a very important insight to say if this is the dose, what is available in the plasma in humans. Then we build on top of that, where we take then the dose that is in the pharmacokinetic study and we do our clinical efficacy at that same dose. So if I'm telling you it's a 250 milligram product, I have tested that 250 milligrams pharmacokinetically to see what's the availability in plasma, how bioavailable is it, and then move that further to the clinical efficacy studies, which will be done at that exact same dose, not at a higher dose, because it's not about getting you're not going to get some extra fantastic results. You could assure yourself results, but you'd rather start at the dose that you think makes sense. So I think for us, all of these different steps, and when you think about integrity, you would take that another step further, because you would take your clinical research and then get it published in peer-reviewed journals. So this is not just what you're saying, you're getting the larger scientific community to agree with your findings. So for me, it's difficult to look at scientific rigor kind of separately, but when you look at quality, right from your selection to all the things that you subject your raw material and your finished product to, look at safety, look at toxicity, look at what is my active content batch to batch. I think that's what puts together the entire process and brings that scientific rigor to our product development cycle and brings all three pieces of the puzzle, quality, integrity, and scientific rigor properly together. The amount of scientific rigor, the amount of steps that we take, and our products are not easy to understand, which means that the people I work with will have to make the effort to understand what they're paying for, which it's like good attracts good. And that has been our journey. So we have, I don't believe, come across a situation where we have a customer who's like, just give it to me, you don't need to do X, Y, and Z, you cut the price. So for us, having that branded ingredient, I think becomes an extremely important play, which I didn't necessarily appreciate coming into the industry, the difference. But now I do even more, because when you're working with a branded ingredient, it's a brand. It's not a fly-by-night. It's not something somebody can replace easily. And it has to stand the test of time. So with everything I do, with every study I conduct, how I publish my results, how I talk about my claims in a way that makes sense for a consumer, and not tall claims are meaningful is what then attracts the right customer to come to me. I think what's been important for Nutriventia and what we have tried to pioneer for the industry is the delivery technology, where it is important to make sure, A, you're keeping the consumer at the heart of it. We are truly working on with every product, with every advancement in the product, to reduce the dose, to make the product more palatable, to minimize the number of times the product needs to be taken. Because time and time again, it has been proven that if I give you a regimen and I tell you to take it 3 times a day, you're most likely to take it once, maybe twice a day, but you're going to forget the 3rd time after the 3rd or the 4th day. So I think it becomes very important when people want to see results with supplements, how can we make it convenient for consumers? And that's the reason, using our delivery technologies, that's what we've been able to do. And then making sure that the studies, the dose, is what, again, I want to center back and circle back to the dose, because the dose is key. If you're going to take a dose out of context, the study says X, but now you're going to give dose Y, I think that's where the science starts to get very muddled for the consumer. I think it's extremely important. I think that's like the easy answer. But there are 2 ends of the spectrum. You have one end of the spectrum where you have consumers who feel like you're not telling them enough. They're lacking transparency. They get suspicious. They're trying to hide something. I'm not seeing everything. I don't understand. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have when you're bombarding them with too much information and they start lacking confidence because they don't understand. It is just too much to digest. So while it's easier said than done, how do you come to a middle ground where you can demystify the science, give them, small bits of information? Like today, I think for a consumer to understand what is a gold standard of a study, why is a randomized, placebo-controlled, double-blinded study important? Why, when a study is not designed that way, the clinical results that you're seeing are difficult to then correlate to what may happen in the real world because you've not eliminated as many variables as possible. So I think these are that's just an example of what I feel every consumer, I take every opportunity that I can to educate a consumer about this, because once they start understanding, they become more informed. The quality of what everybody has to put out there will automatically rise and the consumer trust will get stronger.